And welcome to this one episode of Dice and Design. And unfortunately, today, my usual co host, Tyler from the channel Flame Zombie One, couldn't join me. But I'll be joined shortly by Max Liao, John Slow from the channel Legend of Myth, which he was here a moment ago, but he had issue with his computer and had to reboot just as the show was about to start. I hope everybody in chat is doing well. Hello to and congratulations to Joseph Anagi Jr. for being the first post. And we see now like John Slow's at 96% of his mandatory window update technology. Hello Justin Thor. Hello Arnman. Nice seeing you. Thank you for joining. And the topic of today was about time in RPG. And I wanted to go broad about in it. Oh, there you go.
All right, I hope I'm here.
Yes, you're here. I can hear you.
That was the creepiest thing I've ever. I have that very well curated, and all of a sudden, I accidentally pulled out the microphone cable from my Go XLR, and it's like, now you need a Windows update. Like, wait, what? It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like those. You can try to disable them, but they always like seem to re-enable themselves on their own. I don't know. Windows, technology. There's always something going on.
Mac's worse, so.
Yeah, well, they all are worse. They all have like their fucking issue. Like nobody's happy.
Like people are saying, do the Linux thing. Like, no, I don't want to work to make my computer go. I'll take the balance of Windows and deal with this nonsense.
Yeah, it's always like a question of trade-off.
Yeah.
What happened to Magic Wolf? He's been held by some preparation for some pagan festival or something like that. He has to do like the Halloween decoration at his work. That's what's happening. See, the people there know. I actually have a DBN on the Dell in-studio laptop. Log around for at the least the keyboard is mostly okay. Yeah. Hello, Guardian of the Rune. So today I wanted to talk about time in RPG. And this is one thing. Well, there's a lot of things actually, but one thing that me and Max Liao agree on in RPG about like those calendar thing, like keeping the time moving, even though like we talked a lot about that. But I wanted to go a bit deeper, a bit wider. I wanted to talk about like time in session, like are you seeing always an initiative, like skipping time, the shopping session, stuff like that. I wanted to touch everything that has to do with time, how we manage the time in the session and the time in game. So thank you for joining me, Max.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and yeah, let's get those calendar or timeline. I think you call them timeline, right? Out of the way. So this is like I think like a very important thing in role playing game because you want the world to feel like it's still going on, and events that are planned that are due to happen should happen, even though the character ignore them.
Oh, especially if the characters ignore them. Like,
yeah, if the character like deal with them, then they can prevent them, maybe. But so how do you approach this? Like you decide as a GM, there's an army coming up on this town, and they're gonna be there in 3 weeks. How do you communicate that to your player? How do you manage that? How do you track that?
So the more I talk about how I run my games, the more I find out that I'm fly by the seat of pants. More than I thought so, because I do write things down. I do prepare, but not to the extent of maybe some people. I do believe in some preparation, but in a case like that, using your example, there's an army that's coming. It's 3 weeks away. Well, if it's 3 weeks away, chances are the people know about it, or there are a couple of, we'll say, major cities, major areas in the way. 3 weeks is a pretty far time to travel without there being an event. So the character, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say they're in a hamlet, and the King's Guard will come in and start recruiting, or mercenaries will come in and say, because the rest of the army is out there getting ready to fight, and be like, we need people. And of course, players will be like, I'm not joining that man's army. I'll go do my own thing. Well, mercenaries will be shot on sight. Or, you know what? We've got something for you. If you're willing to do it, go talk to Captain such and such over there. And then
like some scouting or Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if they choose to take it, they might go there and be like, there's 100,000 of them and like 10,000 of us. We're losing this one. I'm not fighting this. And they could choose to do that. Or they could say, you know what? I think we could make a difference here. And maybe we could hurt them enough with our sapper, we're going to be sappers in this one, that we could slow them down. So let's just arbitrarily say, for the sake of argument, 3 weeks out, they meet them 1 week from there. So it's 2 more weeks from the hamlet. And they meet him. Now, the characters probably aren't going to be in a head-on fight, but they're going to do something that might slow them down. Maybe their job is to get an artifact. Maybe their job is to find, a shield spell. Maybe their object is to get behind enemy lines and start assassinating officers. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Or they can come up with their own ideas if that's what they want to do. If they are successful with that, or successful enough, or depending on how successful they are, they could make that army halt. Maybe even pull back, depending on what it is. Or if they fail or they ignore it, the army ruffle stomps the 10,000 and just keeps moving forward like nothing happens.
Yeah, and I think it's if they ignore it, I think that's also going to be very interesting in itself, because sometimes you want to put forecast events that are on their way, are going to happen if nothing is done into it. But it's totally all right if the player don't want to interact with that. Maybe they're in this town and they hear about that. There's rumor going around, but they're doing something else on the man, or they're interested by something else. They leave.
Or maybe for them, the army marching's nothing. They're higher level and they're dealing with demons. You know what? That army taking over this town is a little bit different than a couple of pit fiends stomping around. So you guys handle that. We'll handle this. Or what about this? They decide, you know what? We can't beat this army. Or this is too close to call. Let's get everybody out of here into a safe place, and they facilitate the evacuation. That's something that they could do as well. I try to be somewhat sandboxy without just, what do you want to do?
But the important point also is that even if the player ignore it completely, like it's a plot hook that is out there, they don't buy it at all. That's fine. Let them do something else.
Yep.
But then if they come back in the same town later on, then there's consequence to what happened. You know what I mean? Like and it gives the impression that the world keeps going on even when the players are not around. Because I think that's something we see a lot within the modern player, like, or maybe newer GM. There's like this Skyrim kind of effect, like where you have like those quests happening, but the world is on pause until the characters are nearby, until the PC are nearby. I think that's the main thing, that if you want to give some verisimilitude to your world, that's one of the main things to avoid, is that the world need to exist for its own sake. The world need to keep going even when the characters are not around. And having forecasting some event that's going to happen. You can also have just event that happen without forecast, but forecasting events that's going to happen is a great way to give this
I try to make it reasonable. If it's something that they should, again, a major army 3 weeks out, they're going to at least hear rumors about, if not know full well what's going on, as again, your side is hopefully recruiting or just being slaughtered. I mean, it could be like the Mongol invasion where every town is just like, give us your stuff or die. What do you want? And they're going to hear about that. But at the same time, I have more than one event happening. So are they trying to stop the army? Are they trying to investigate a murder that could help defend the town? Are they going after those pit fiends that we were talking about? Are they killing the rats in the basement? I mean, there are different things that are going on. Some timelines are longer, some timelines are shorter. Some they know about, some they think they know about, and some they don't. Like, I don't overthink it. That sounds probably more complicated than it is, because a lot of times what I've done is be like, ooh, that's a pretty cool idea. I could have that working in the background. How can I get the rumors of that to them? I'll just come up with new ideas.
Yeah. And another thing also that those longer term, like forecasted event do, if you keep them on a timeline, it put your player it forces your player sometimes to make choice, especially if you have slow healing, or if they have other things they need to accomplish. Maybe they want to say, oh, we could go get this artifact that's going to help us in this fight, whatever it is, or we can go dig some ditch, or we can go recruit people in this neighboring village. But because of the time crunch, you cannot do them all.
Right. Now, I keep that time crunch going on, but I also bake in time for that unless they're just losing. If they constantly lose, there's nothing they can do about that. But I bake in the ability for side quests because I want the character, because I like it when the players come up with their own ideas. One of the things I do, and I'm not trying to sidetrack this, but just as an example, is I like it when they come up with their own wives' tales or their own superstitions. We actually did a video on this a couple years ago. The pot of gold under the rainbow. That's great. That's a real world one. Come up with your own in the game. It might be true. It might not be true, but you're only going to know if you investigate it. So if they come up with something, maybe I'll start throwing little rumors or ideas, or somebody will say something very reminiscent of that. And they'll be, oh, hey, we should go check on that.
Hello, Bear. That's we reversed the role today, so this is what the affront is.
All the affronts, all of them.
Yeah. It's like now, like cats sleeping with dogs, and Max Liao being the guest.
He told me we were going to talk
about
about Star Trek. We haven't talked about Star Trek yet.
That's for when we want everybody to leave.
Oh.
And the same thing with time. Also, like when you take care of the time dimension in your game. One thing also that is that I think if you have like slow healing, I'm a big fan of like slow healing. I don't like when you just like spend one night and then you regain all your hit point. And it's the same thing as well, forcing your playing to make choice. Sometimes there's stuff happening. You need to press on. Do I take a week to heal up, or do I press on? Well, I got like with those injury, I'm not that injured. Maybe I can there's a risk. You introduce an element of risk reward.
That was a complaint of my AD&D second edition players, and I didn't understand why it was a complaint. Is they were almost never at full hit points unless there was a big time disparity. Like we are sitting down for 3 months because somebody's going to learn some spells. Somebody's going to, work at the church. Somebody, whatever. They've got some, we'll call them city events going on, but they're almost never at full hit points.
Yeah, and I think that's personally, if you play like this kind of game, like with the D&D and stuff like that, like where we have like those big point of a point, like keeping your player like it should be like pretty rare to be at full hit point, I think. And you mentioned like unless they're sitting down for a while, and that's another thing I want to talk about, like downtime. I'm gonna, that should be my drinking game when I mentioned Pendragon. In Pendragon, there's this thing where you play a session. You're gonna do like it's expected that your character do one adventure per session per year. So once a year you go on an adventure, and then the rest of the time, like there's a winter, you go back to your manor, you take care of your land, stuff like that. So there's a lot of time skip. But the idea is that you're gonna play the whole life of your character, and then you're gonna go play the life of your children and stuff like that. It's generational play. So your characters age pretty fast, and there's also in winter phase you can lose some more, so you can have children being born. There's all kind of stuff like that, but that's really integrated in the game, and it allows so that healing can take time. But even outside of those games, it's always something that I like when there's time jump, because the way I see what we do in RPG, I say we're telling the story of the player character. The player character, the protagonist, is the story that we're creating through play, and we want to focus on the interesting part of that story. So sometimes if they're just like, if they're just doing like mundane stuff, it's like Jack Bauer in 24. Every season is not like the next day. There's like downtime in between, but then you focus on the part that's interesting. So I think having downtime allows that, but not everybody like that. And it's also avoid the idea that you go from level 1 to 20 and then 2 months of game time went by.
Yeah, that's something that I frown upon also. Like travel time is a big deal for me. In fact, in my high magic game, which will be my drinking game, Earth Dawn.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do is I warn players when they're low circle, like, hey, don't play an Air Sailor or Sky Raider. You're going to be really angry with me because I'm not putting you on an airship. I want you to travel the world. In AD&D, until they're higher level, and usually by that point I peter the game out anyway because I'm not much of a fan of running the high level side of it. I don't do fast travel, so it takes time to get places, and you have to sleep, and you have to eat, and you have to you can't always hunt for food. When you get to a small village, they have just enough for themselves. So no. And what if you're on the king's land? Are you going to go kill the king's deer? Don't get caught. Uh,
Mhm.
I incorporate ideas like that where it's like you're going to want to rest at some point, critical injuries, and yeah, that might not be in the core rules of D&D, but it is something that I incorporate in my game. Critical injuries are worse than hit point loss. This hit point
Mhm.
loss can recover, and yeah, even in old school D&D, it took a while, but it's those critical injuries. If you bust up your leg, it takes a couple weeks at least for it to heal. I don't do real world stuff, but I do slow you down a little bit. And then yeah, like you said, the whole leveling idea. I never understood why. Like, dude, we went in there and we killed 4 rats, and I gained a level. But that's like 8 XP. Like, I mean, because once you figure out all the people in the group divided by the people, how? Well, I don't like slow leveling games. That's not even slow
Yeah.
leveling. You killed a couple of mice.
Yeah.
Like,
You see, I don't mind if doing this. If you're in the like, I don't tend to play like those level game. I'm more like a skill based game. But like
sure.
those, even in level based game, I don't mind when like doing the fast leveling. But there's gonna be time skip. You know what I mean? Like okay. Now like we're 6 months later. Like, and then we can go through what did you do during those
But for the
6 months,
problem in my
whatever.
games for that is, and that's a great way to do it. Trying to find, we'll call it the missions you want to go on, or
Mhm.
whatever. I do play a little more fantasy than you do. Obviously, I'm more Dragonlance, Lord of the Rings style. So there's always something that they can be doing, and they probably want to do it. That's why they're showing up. Very rarely do they say, okay, and now this has happened though. They say, hey, look, we need to take 6 months off.
Mhm.
And then I will skip that, but I skip a lot of stuff. Let's use Earth Dawn again because this came up pretty often. In Earth Dawn, you get what's called a karma ritual every day. And that's how much karma you can get back. Karma, for lack of a better term, for people who don't know out there, think of it as just like talent, magical abilities, and you spend karma to fuel them or to make them a little more powerful. Well, when you're out of karma, you can't do that anymore.
Mm.
Well, you get so much back per day. Well, what I would do is, hey, you're traveling for 10 days. All right, I get to write down 10 days of karma, right? Nope. Well, why not? We're traveling for 10 days. Well, your choice is to either adventure and have random encounters literally every single one of those days, or I'm going to roll a couple of random encounters to see if things slow you down. And then I'm going to roll a d10 because we said 10 days. And that's how many days worth of karma rituals you get back.
Mm.
But we're going to add that 10 days to your character no matter what. And then if they get a random encounter along the way, I will deal with that. If they don't get a random encounter along the way, we're skipping those 10 days because otherwise it's just, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. Here we are walking some more. Like, no, I'm not doing this genre movie style, but I am doing this book style, so to speak, where it's
Mhm.
like, we can start the next chapter 3 days later.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, even if like sometimes I could say like, well, it's not like that the character is gonna take like 6 months off doing nothing, but they do nothing interesting. That you do like
Mm.
your mundane stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
At some point, like you reach a certain level, maybe you do go take care of like this mission here. You go really like, oh, you're a local hero. You do like stuff that is not like mundane for you in a sense. You're still adventuring in a way, but nothing that's going to be life threatening, nothing that's going to be life altering. So like I don't want necessarily to do like 8 months or 5 months of of like of session every week where we just do like dungeon delving, like week after week after week. We go in the new dungeon, a new type of monster. Like that doesn't interest me. I'm okay with doing some. When you're early level, we establish, okay, that's how the character began the career as adventurer. They were dungeon delving, going into dungeon, killing those monster. We got it at some point. Let's move on to the next phase of their life. So that's why like that's one way that I'm gonna do time skip. And I say you gain the level at some point, like during those 6 months, you did those things. But now there's this big threat happening. Like I'm okay with that advancing like that.
Again, you and I do different style of games when
Mhm.
it comes to that, and this will show the difference here. Now, let's just say they arbitrarily say, "Hey, we want to take a 6 month downtime because he
Mhm.
wants to train. I want to get some armor. I want to create a couple spells. You know what? Great, as long as you're not trying to break the game. Like the perfect spell or the perfect, like, oh, I'm going to, manipulate together exactly what I want to make this exactly perfect, because I won't let that happen anyway. Then pretty much I'm like, yeah, just you've got time for roll how long it takes to make the spells, how many times you failed, et cetera, et cetera. I'd still have you do the quick rolls. We just won't take the time for it. So figure out what spells you want to do, figure out what rolls you need to make to create them, and go down the list in order. And once that 6 months or 5 months or whatever time frame is done, that's where you're done. You get no more spells, no more potions, no whatever. Go pay the money for your armor that you want, again, as long as it's not magical. I don't see that big, and you have the money for it, I don't see that big of a deal with it. And there are things you can do. Obviously, core books don't really have them, but a lot of the splat books for AD&D Second Edition had how long it takes to make armor, how long it takes to do parts of your stronghold. So yeah, I like time sinks, and I think time sinks make sense. And sometimes you just need some R&R. You got all this money, hopefully, and
Yep.
you want to spend some of it. And maybe this little hamlet doesn't have what you're looking for. It's time to move on to the big city. Well,
That's also one thing that if you want to play like in a more like mud car type of game, that you can justify time sink in that way. You're adventuring, went into the dungeon, they got a big score, they brought back some money. Now they're gonna spend it for a couple. They're gonna live easy, and then like when they you can pick up back up when they're out of money and say, well, now it's time to get some job again. Let's get back together. We're fucking broke. That's also something that can justify a time skip.
I just had to put in one time is stupid.
Yeah, I still say you just give the bro a Soras joke.
They can
And
have
also,
a show.
well,
Of course, I can't type, but hey, whatever.
yeah. And you mentioned about like the travel. You talk about random encounter and stuff like that, and this is something I'm interesting to talk about as well, because sometimes, like, I think often about like I don't know if you watch a Game of Thrones. You watch the first season, and you do have this sense that even though you don't see it on screen, you do have this sense that travel takes time. Characters go from point A to point B, and that's something that completely was gone in the later season. Now the characters just teleport from one place to another, and even the first season, like, they didn't show you every detail of the journey, but they would give like little snippet, and I think that's a clever way to do it. You imply like going from this point to this point, and it can be days that you just skip ahead, just like the mundane stuff like that, but then something happened in one of those days during the travel, like once or twice, maybe, depending on the journey. Is that how you do it as well, or do you want, like, because it's kind of like doing this way in a sense is anathema to the X crawl way, when you say, oh, okay, now you move to the next X, let's roll what happened.
So
Okay, now
I
you
haven't done a lot of the hex crawls that not in D&D. Forbidden Lands, I want to do that at some point. I could do a West Marches style. I haven't. It's not that I'm against it. The way I usually did random encounters is first of all, I mean, so the Monsters Compendiums had a D20 roll that you could do based on the level of the party. Second here. But I would pare that down. I wouldn't do a D20 roll. I'd have 3 to 5 monsters ready, and depending on where they were, that's what I do. And that's because I would actually read the Monsters Compendium beforehand. I would know how the monsters work, because I don't want to slow down the game. Be like, oh crap, I haven't used this monster in a long time. How does the Saugan work again? I forget. No, I'm going to be ready for that. So I'll know where I want to place it. Just because I roll a random encounter doesn't mean that's okay. Stop the game, random encounter. No, I was like, okay, I could do that. I could do that. Okay, I know where that's going to be, and then we'll have it happen. So I do believe in random encounters. I do believe that adventuring is dangerous, but I don't do. I forget what the rules are for D&D, but I don't do like 3 random encounters every day. I'll have like 2 for a week or something.
Yeah.
Unless they've done something to cause there to be multiple random encounters. Chase scenes are great. I love chase scenes. Like, you piss off the wrong people and they're chasing you across the country.
Yeah, that could be interesting. One thing I experimented back in the days, that had been a while, but like, I tried to flip the random encounter when, like, oftentimes, like, oh, there's like nothing happened on the result. I changed those results to be like nothing happened for a day, 2 days, 3 days, or depending like on the scale. So you roll once on the random encounter, and then gives you like a time before, like, you're clear for that time, and then so you roll at the start of the travel, and then you can have like this time going in, and if you roll long enough, they manage to reach the destination, and then you also have the time, like if they fuck around, if they take their time, then well, that you roll that something is gonna happen in 4 days. You could make it in 3 days if you press on. If you take your time, it might take 5. So
Yep.
you can have like this element in there as well. Like I think it's a bit of a different way to do random encounter, but instead of like rolling every day, you just like roll once, and it's gonna give you like when the next encounter is gonna
Sure.
happen.
And like Dice Tale says, it doesn't have to be hostile. That is true. Now, again,
Yeah,
it's just the flavor of how I run my games. Mostly random encounters are going to be hostile, and the reason is because unless it's an untraveled road, and then it'll be like it won't even be a road; it'll just be a path or a trail. The players will already have had enough description for me to say that they can meet somebody within a reasonable time. So I don't do a lot of just personal random encounters unless it's either a red herring or an actual side quest, because the players that I've had would get bogged down in talking with every single person, and that's all we'd do the entire session.
Yeah. And L was asking like 1 day or 1 week to cross IX. Do you have a preference on that?
Depends on the size. I mean, Forbidden Lands is 2 hexes a day, if I remember correctly. I mean, it just it depends. I mean, usually the games came with how far, like 1 hex is 6 miles or something like that. Well, since the average, I mean, what the Roman army traveled 30 miles in a day. I'm sorry, that was 30 kilometers. So you do the math on that one. So that's what,
That's
3-4 hexes theoretically. I don't get bogged down in exact numbers, and in fact, there's somebody that I think we know who doesn't talk to me anymore over the fact that that we had we'll just say a discussion on that. I don't get bogged down in exact numbers because life isn't exact. You don't hit that 30-kilometer mark and just fall over. Sometimes you'll do 31, other days you do 27. If it really, really, really matters, then I'll figure that out. But else, it's like, how far did you get? Well, you got in the hex, you checked around, it took you a few hours. Do you want to try another one, or do you want to set up camp? I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's something also like a bit maybe beside the topic, but we can talk about it because like yes, idea of maps that we have, that's a very modern conception. Like people didn't do maps in that way back in the medieval time as well. Like of course, if you play like a modern game, it makes sense to have like map, but in the time, people had itinerary where they would say like, oh, you want to go to this place, so you go to this town, and then this town, and then this place, and then this sort of, and then you're gonna get there. You're just like, it was almost more like a flow chart than a map, oftentimes. And the maps that they had were oftentimes more symbolic, weren't very precise, weren't very, so you didn't have this, and it wasn't distance like the Roman had those miles, but that was kind of the exception. Usually just like people like just talk, well, that's a day walk from here, and
Yeah, I
depending
mean,
on
if
the
you're
terrain.
talking realistic, I'm just saying, like, when I got a D&D map from a Ravenloft map or Forgotten Realms map or whatever, they usually had the hexes on there and said each hex is whatever. I think they're typically 5 or 6 miles. I forget.
Yeah, but I'm saying that in an accordance to, you say like, I don't get bogged down in the number. I don't give like precise number. I say like, well, this can also be applied to map.
Yeah.
You don't have like a bird eyes view from the geography, depending on your setting, obviously.
I do
But
things like it's going to take you a day or two to get from here to there, depending on how the trail is. It's been raining a lot, so that's going to slow you down. So what used to take at least a full day, if not a day and a half, is now going to take you 2 days. I'll have things like that. Enter the, since we're talking about time, enter the fray as far as time goes.
And what about the time? Like, I want to talk about like during a session, because I know some people like say, oh, you're always on initiative. You should always be real time and stuff like that. I see why they want that, and I think that worked for some kind of game, especially for horror game. I think that's a great advice. But if you play a game that's a little tactical, I think like when you go initiative, you're gonna be slower than real time. When you're gonna be traveling, you're gonna be faster than real time. When you're just like in the, well, I usually like divide it in 3 type of tempo: action tempo when you're initiative, where you're slower than real time; interaction when you just like talk and do the role play and you're just like in free form a bit more, then that would be like a interaction tempo; and then transition tempo when you just like go from one scene to the next. 3 weeks pass, whatever, just like. How do you stand on that? Do you do? I know where you stand, but you.
Yeah, well, I honestly, you're thinking about it more than I do.
Yeah.
I just go with the flow. So when it comes to let's go down to the combat round for a second. I roll initiative, and I'm one of those people that believes I roll in rolling initiative every round.
Mm-hmm.
Combat is a scrum. Combat changes constantly, and I don't like a dedicated order. I like rolling initiative every round. But I don't roll initiative simply because the characters want to attack. If the character, so let's just say, somebody's attacking you. Well, if you're not prepared for it, that person's just going to make an attack roll. I'm not going to say, "Oh, roll initiative."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I might have seen it coming. No, you weren't expecting it coming. Shut up. In worst case scenario, I might roll a surprise, but it really depends on the situation. And even then, let's just say somebody's shooting a guard. You're standing at a tree line for whatever reason. It's a badly constructed fort, and you're standing at a tree line, or it's a small town that's trying to act tough or something. And within range of bow shot is somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
you're standing in the tree line. Nobody sees you at all, and you're just whoop with that nice longbow that you've got. I'm not going to have you roll initiative. And even if it hits, I'm not going to have you roll initiative because the chances are if it hits, the person's down or the person's running back behind the wall or the person's like, what the hell just happened? Oh my God. And you're going to get another shot off. Why am I going to roll initiative? I don't roll initiative until it matters the order of operations. And then, moving on from combat, I let them do their stuff. I do combat rounds in however long combat rounds are supposed to be. I don't care if a combat round is a minute or 5 seconds or 3 seconds or 15 seconds, like Palladium, whatever. When it's your turn, be ready to act. I'm going to give you approximately 10 seconds to do your thing. If you can't figure out what you're going to do in 10 seconds, you've lost that action. I'm moving on to the next person. I don't care how long a combat round represents in the game. We'll figure that out later.
Well, it's more important, like the general duration that the combat took, I guess.
For me, it's more important to keep the people engaged at the table, ready for their turn, seeing what's going on, having fun with it, having time to think of what they want to do, but not, maybe I'll do it. Like, no, you're in a fight. Things are just happening. You have to react. What are you doing?
What how do you deal about keeping time of like the general time? You're in the dungeon, like, oh, your torch lasts an hour. Do you bother much about it, or you just say, well, now it's about time the torch is out?
Yeah, I actually with torches, yes, I do. That is one of the things that in D&D that can be cumbersome. I forget the actual duration of a torch. I think it is like an hour, maybe it's 4 hours. I forget what it is, but yes, I hope you have enough because if you came in there with 3 torches, you're not going to be down here a long time. But of course, to be fair, every wizard that I've ever traveled with or that's been in the group once he hits 3rd level has continual light. So.
Mm-hmm. And because like Armin was saying earlier, like we have the players use a toy clock to keep track of time during our in-person session. The GM say put 10 minutes on the clock, and not only is time moving, everyone hear the announcement. I think that could be a way. That could be a way to make everybody like on the same page. Although, depending on the level of the technology you have, maybe you don't. Sometimes like it's hard to estimate how much time passed.
I like timer dice. Because timer dice keep me random as well. Like, there's reinforcements that are going to come in, or that the boulder is going to break free from the wall, or something's going to happen. And I don't always know what it is as a game master, and I'll roll a timer die. Sometimes I'll let the players see it. Sometimes I will not. It depends on what's happening. If I really want to stoke that, hey, we got to get going. I'm trying to think of something, lighting a fuse, so to speak, where it's like they can see it. Going across, I'll let them see. You've got 3 rounds. You've got 2 rounds. You got 1 round. Or maybe there's a gaseous cloud coming in. They can see it, but it's not quite there yet. I'll let them see it. Other times they're not going to see it, and I'm going to know that they only got 1 round. That sucks for them. Or they got 6 rounds this time. Okay, they should be able to do this. Whatever, because that keeps me on my toes as well.
Yeah, it keeps them on their toe, and players that are kept on their toe, players that stay engaged. I believe. But like because that's something I find like something I can find difficult because you want to fill your day with something, but if you just like describe what you're doing, like it's hard. Like like we're gonna play like for an hour, 2 hours, stuff like that. How much time should pass in game during this time? It's gonna be like most likely more than an hour or 2 because there's a lot of like scene, like I walk from there to there. Like how long does it take you? Did it take you like 15 minutes, an hour? So I think that this idea from Armin was interesting. and it almost arc back to the idea of like calendar, because now with calendar we can track the days that pass, but now it's almost like, well, now, and I don't know if like you want to do it by the hour, by the half hour, you want to do it, or by 10 minutes, like you say. You could do it by the half day or quarter day, whatever. But I think that's
I just do what feels right based on what the players are trying to do. I'm not sitting here trying to look at my watch and be like, okay, you got to wait 5 minutes before you can do anything. No. All right. It took you 15 minutes to get there. You wanted, I don't have magic stores, but let's start by say, you wanted to buy a magic item. Okay, you go in there, and then I'll role play the guy like, welcome to the store. I don't care how long that takes. Now, a lot of times what I do, I've seen some of the chat that people put out there. You could have like a wagon wheel broken. If I do that, that's not a random encounter. That's a planned encounter. It's either a red herring, it's an alignment check, which is something I will do to see if the players are still acting like the heroes that I think they should be, or maybe they're evil. I don't know. Or it's there for information, or it's there as a trap. But I actually don't do things like broken wagons as random encounters. There's always a purpose for them in my games, because and the purpose could just be to slow them down. It meant nothing. But
this is the thing I think I like in random encounter. Either, or maybe because my players often at time have wagon, so sometimes it's your wheel of wagon that break.
Yeah, I'm so sick of the broken horse trope that unless they do something ridiculous, I can answer that in a second. Unless they do something ridiculous, I don't go out of my way to break people's wagons or kill people or steal people's horses. That trope to me is so old and obnoxious. Unless they do something ridiculous, or they just so don't care whatsoever. But as far as a timer die go, no, it'd be something like such and such is going to happen within, like, reinforcements. Reinforcements are going to arrive within a D6 rounds. And I roll a D6, and it comes up a 3. In 3 rounds, reinforcements are going to be there to cause more problems for the characters. If they can win in 3 rounds, they might not see the reinforcements, or they might run into them surprisingly, whatever. But if they don't defeat the enemy, now they're going to have even more enemy to fight. What the hell was that? That's just an example.
Yep. But you could use if you need to generate, that would be a way. If you need to generate for some reason, like a random time of day of night, I guess you could do just roll a d12 for the hours, or maybe you want
I've used my D30 from my Zachi dice for DCC to do days of the month.
Yeah. You went to sleep, and you're in the dungeon, you don't know how much time passed. The GM can roll 2d6, and that's how much time you slept. On average, 7 hours. It's a pretty decent night of sleep.
Wow, you got 12 hours of sleep. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, you never done that. Maybe you're
not
tired
without cause, no.
Yeah, but that's still like 1 in 6 chance. So you got the bell curve playing for you there. It's just an idea like that.
I get you.
Yeah, if you want to have like this,
I'd probably do like a D6 plus a D, no, not D6. I'd probably do a 6 plus a D4 or something, But that type of minutia, there has to be a reason for me to do. How many hours did you sleep? That's with the exception of wizard spells, and again, we're talking D&D because depending on which edition you play and what rules you follow, they have to get a minimum of 6 hours of sleep or a minimum of 8 hours of sleep or whatever. And then, like in second edition, oh my God, memorizing spells. I mean, it's 90 minutes for 1 9th level spell. And let's say you cast like 10 spells the day before. You may as well just take the entire day off, because it's going to take the wizard the entire day to memorize spells again.
Yeah. And like you said, like I agree. Like I don't usually get bogged down if there's no reason for it. But if the player's on a time crunch, like sometimes it can become like significant to know, like, well, is it going to take you like 3 days to cross that tunnel? Is it going to take you 4 days? Is it like, sometimes it can get like significant, and there's always like this element of if you rest, you kind of take a risk, because you don't have an alarm clock. You don't have like people in chat.
See, I would probably
about cell phone. You don't have your cell phone to put an alarm.
In a situation like that, I'd probably make that a challenge and make it a role playing challenge. Like if I want something to possibly take 3 or 4 days, and they come across it, it might be, okay, you've got to pass this span. There used to be a rope bridge here, but it's now broke. How are you going to get across?
Mhm.
And have them work that out. And then one, it slows down. I don't want to say slows down the game, but it pauses the game. So they're not rush unless they have to be. But secondly, it gives them a challenge to defeat. So if they get across it, they get across it in that time. If they don't get across, well, they can choose to say, take the long way, which is going to add a day or two to the trip.
Yeah. And that's because like we mentioned quite a few times like what is dramatically significant, what is interesting and stuff like that. I think that's important to focus on that. And you mentioned also like the shopping to, if you're a dwarf wizard, go to the magic shop.
Oh yeah,
which is the cornerstone of your games, I know.
Oh yeah, every dwarf wizard has a magic shop.
But because shopping session can be the fucking bane of a session. You know what I mean? Like they of a game. And like, do you want to skip them? Do you want to role play them? Do you try to do kind of an in between kind of thing? How do you deal with
Okay, so I'm guilty in the past of role playing through all of that. Now, I've never had players complain, and they've never come to me and be like, yeah, dude, it took too long to shop. So I kind of was okay with it myself, even if it bored me. No, not anymore. If you're doing Missing Bridge feels like corporate team building, well, that's how you want to envision it. Every type of challenge possible is just something that I'm going to put in front of you.
Team building is good in the RPG, like for the party.
If you're buying rope, no. Well, the biggest argument that I ran into why people always no, I want to role play this out. Why? Well, because I have the haggle skill and I want it to cost less. How about this? Roll your haggle skill now. Did you succeed? Yes. 10% off. Whatever book price is, 10% off. Or I'm already charging more than what book price says because you're not in a local trade area. So it's plus 25% minus 10%. Or maybe I'll just say don't add the 25%. I don't know. But it's going to be a generic thing. For any generic stuff you want, that's what it's going to be. If it starts cost too much or if you're iffy about it, ask me. Other than that, just spend the money and buy it. Magic items, because I don't have magic shops in my game, magic items usually require a quest. Jeepers creepers, stop smacking my mic. So you want you want a couple of potions of healing? Well, I don't know what would be involved in that, but to say I need 2 cockatrice eyes. So until you go get me a couple, or I need a myconid, I need a live myconid. Then I can make it for you. I'll make you 10 potions, but you have to get me this one thing. Now all of a sudden it's a side quest. You want this stuff? And I do the same thing even for magic spells. Like, I'm going to make a scroll. Great. You need components for that. No, I don't. Yes, you do. In my games, you need components for it. Now, they're not crazy components, and they're not like it's going to take you 10 years to get it, but you got to get something meaningful. If you're going to make a fireball spell, I might have you actually go find some bat guano. Or maybe, you fight a fire elemental and you take a piece of that. I don't know. It's just, you have to earn. Magic is rare. Magic, I do more low magic worlds. People can cast spells. You can play a wizard. You won't be screwed. In fact, you'll probably feel a little OP because you'll have spells that others don't. But you have to earn it, and that takes time. And again, all these things take time in the character's growth, and as these other timelines are moving on.
But when you go for the real mundane, like the fucking archer, they come back to town, like, I need to go buy some more arrow.
Okay, you where you go? First of all, is there a Fletcher in town? And I might roll for that. Depends. If it's a big city, sure, there might be. If there's not, you might have to have somebody commission them for you. Or you might have to go to the governmental army and say, hey, I know you guys use these for war and stuff, but can I get some arrows? Well, sure you can, but we have this dirty deed we want you to do. We can't be seen doing this, and give them something to do on the side. Now, I'm not making it sound like they can never buy them. I'm just saying these are things that I can do to slow stuff down.
But you would have them like basically role play it out, like, oh, okay, now you go to the barrack and there's this guy there, you would go to this.
Depends on what it is and how much they want and where they are. I mean, a lot of things come into consideration for this.
Let's say like they're in a big city. Yeah, there's gonna be a Fletcher. It's pretty obvious, and it's a place that they went. You went already. You just say like, okay, you go to the Fletcher. You got your arrow back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then
Yeah.
that's another thing. When they shoot arrows in my games, there's a random chance that they can find them. I mean, if you shoot, say 7 arrows, I'll have you roll a d6, and that's how many you recover.
And oh, do you do? Oh yeah, do you do just like the closest dice under what you shoot?
Closest die under, closest die over. What I feel like doing at that time, I'll even roll a d7. I got the Zachi dice. It doesn't matter. Again, I don't strive for perfection when it comes to that. Now, caveat: if the players are like, we're camping here for the night, and I'm going to take the entirety of the night if I have to find all my arrows, I'll be like, okay, and then I'll roll the timer die to see how long it took him to find his arrows.
Yeah. Well, also like arrow fucking breaks all the time. That's also
I know.
something.
No, I understand, but this is also a fantasy game, so I allow some cinematic fantasy elements to exist.
Yeah, but I because that's something like I find like yesterday I was in a game of Castle and Crusade with Rick from the channel 28mm.
I have not watched those yet. Are they fun?
Oh, they're fun. Yeah, they're fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. They but and yesterday like there's been like a bit of a shopping spree, I guess. But we're like it was like we do a lot of like planning and stuff like that. We're a small party, so we have to go in adventure like when we have like to think. So a lot of like oftentimes we're gonna have a session, like we talk, we do plan, we decide what we're gonna do next. And Rick is great in that sense that he lets us lead. So we decide the character, like we talk and we decide like where we go next. Like he puts some plot hook. Sometimes say, well, do you want to work with that guy or do you want to fucking like go against that guy? He's kind of a jerk. It's party. But now we decide to work for this guy, and he say like, and in the deal we say, okay, but we can resupply. So we open your armory for us. And it's just only gonna be mundane stuff. But that led to a bit of a shopping thing, and I think Rick managed it good. Because it felt like, in the first Terminator movie, Arnold go to his fucking weapon store, and there is a shopping scene there, but then it's played in the sense that you just say like, oh, what do you want? Like, and then he says something and say, it's only what you got here. So like, okay, you're not gonna have anything fancy, it tells you that. And then he just say, okay, I want this, I want that, I want that. And then that's it. You get out and well, that's not how it happened in the movie, but I'm not gonna spoil this fucking 40-year-old movie. But I think and that's I think that's almost what Rick did. Like we just went there, like okay, I showed a writ from the guy that say like he's gonna resupply us and say, okay, what do you want? I say, okay, I want this, I want that, I want that, and it's there you go. Then it's done.
I've done everything with that. Write me a list of the stuff that you want, and I'll tell you what's available. I've done the whole let's role play it all the way out. I'd tell you I've probably done that more than I wish I had. We've also done the whatever you want, book price, whatever. Like I said before, I've done. I would like to say that I feel the room on that, and since I don't like to take up the entire game with shopping, there are things that I want to get to. Barring anything unusual, just buy it. Or if you're in a hamlet, sorry, you're probably not buying much. You're gonna be bartering most of your stuff. So
yeah,
I try to keep some of that verisimilitude in there without bogging down the game.
Yeah, and I think also like especially if the party is splitting, like if it's one person that say, okay, I'm gonna go buy some stuff, I think it's totally legit that you role play with the rest of the party, and then you can just like pick up with the other player. Okay, you just like came off the shop. It's like you could see that in movies. If a character go buy something in movies, that's going to be important sometime. Oftentimes, the establishing such is going to be like the character getting off the store, and I think that's a legit way to do it. But also, sometimes something is going to happen in the store.
Well, a lot of times for me, those people have needs. Like, hey, it'd be really helpful if you could go get me some goose feathers. Hey, it'd be really helpful. Like, there's a mine down there. We haven't received our shipment recently. Can you go see what's going on with that? Oh, look, side quest. Hey,
that's also important to know your party, know your players, because if you try to do that, like some player, like the party I'm with in this game, like so fucking shopkeeper say, no man, I got gold, man. Like I'm not gonna fucking I'm not your fucking errand boy. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, that's fine. But if there's nobody in the area who can do it, again, if you're in a city that's got armed guards, you're gonna have a few blacksmiths in there. I get that. But if you're in a hamlet or a village, you might not.
Yeah, no. I mean, like those. Like if you go to the shop, I say like it's all right. Like if you want to, like your player go to the shop and then the shopkeeper try to give them a side quest, but you have to like at some point, like if the party always never pick up on those side quests and are just like, man, we're not there. Like I got another job to do. I got like a main quest to take care of. You know what I mean?
Man,
At some point, you
and
can.
how many times have you complained that you don't have plate mail armor, and how these opportunities you had to actually get plate mail armor, and you just not picked up on it? Well,
Yeah, but then if you get disappointed, that's if you want plate mail armor, that become your quest, that become the goal of your character. So that's a different
yeah.
story. But just having like always like trying to, I think it's just like a matter of like, don't try to force something on your party that they don't want, and that also goes to
No.
the what.
I'm just saying that there are options. Like you might
Mhm.
not exactly get what you want, or you
Yeah.
can help the people out there. Hey, you'll get what you want. Another thing that I've done before you read that is I've done. Hey, I'll give this to you because you're helping us out. You just got to give it back when you're done.
Mhm. Yeah,
You know,
yeah, that's something that can be done as well. But like I sometimes I want to avoid like the kind of like a link. You play like those Zelda game, and it's like, oh, there's this catastrophe coming up, and you have to save the world. But then like every fucking buddy asks something of Link, and he always like, oh, can you help me pick up my chicken? Yeah, I'll do that for you. But like there's fucking like moon coming crashing down on the earth. You know what I mean?
yeah, but
I,
that's when you make the decision. What's more, like I said, I bake in time for characters to do side quests.
yeah.
If you were to just to run, let's say you found a timeline that you're on, you got that army coming, like you said, in 3 weeks, right? And you just rush head first into that, chances are you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You're not going to be high enough level. You're not going to have enough contacts. You're not going to have enough, artifacts or abilities. Just everything about that is going to be bad for you. Maybe your objective is to slow them down a little bit, go do a side quest, slow them down a little bit more, do some side quests. Maybe the intent is you lose. 3 weeks isn't a lot of time. So I would, they'd probably know if it's a major plot hook, they would know about it before then, but the point being is I bake that stuff in, then it becomes risk reward. If you spend your entire time doing side quests, you can do that.
Mhm.
You're going to be armored up. You're going to have stuff. You're going to have things, but guess what? It's going to conquer, and you've done nothing to stop it.
Yeah, and also like in that case, it's a problem in Link also because like the time is not advancing if you're not advancing the main quest, which like that's also what we talk about it and beginning of the stream. Yeah, if you want to take a day to help somebody like pick up this chicken, well, that's one day less that you have to resolve the main issue. So that's another way that keeping time going solve a lot of issues. Arman was saying I roleplay the shop and taverns if the players want to. There are a couple oddball shops that must be roleplayed, the Mage Towers, the
Yeah,
Crazy Frog
I
Lady
agree with
Hawk,
that.
but that's it. And I agree with that. And also like I want to say like that's something important as well. Like know your player, know what they're after, and also like that's lead me to the next thing I want to talk about. Let your player give your player the time that they need to do the stuff that they want to engage with as well. In the sense,
Mhm.
like sometimes they always say like, oh, if the player like you have to be able to get the vibe of what's happening at the table. If your player are just like talking stuff through, trying to come up with a plan, and they're engaged, you can let them the time to do it. If they're just like, if they don't see a solution, they're being very negative. They're talking. They're trying to they're trying to figure out what do we need to do now, and you can feel that they're not engaged as much. That's something like make something happen in that sense. Try to push them
Absolutely.
toward the table.
Another thing to remember when it comes to the role playing side of it, and I think that the story gamers, and I would even say that those of us who, you know, are more campaign oriented than just game rules oriented, sometimes forget is that character and player are different. In fact, that's one of the things I know people. I love basic D&D because it's all about player skill. Well, no, it's supposed to be about character skill. And now I'm not against the concept of, hey, smart players, doing smart things. But at some point, if the players aren't getting it, you have some dumb puzzle in there or something. I hate puzzles.
Yeah.
And they're not getting it. Well, your wizard's got an 18 intelligence. Your thief has got a 17 dexterity and a 16 intelligence. Your cleric's got a 17 wisdom. You're talking, world renowned type capabilities here, and they can't figure out a simple puzzle. Well, maybe understand that the characters probably can. Now, what I usually do in a situation like that is I give the players time to do it until they seem frustrated or try to stop even before that point. And then I'll have the character, they'll make a roll, some sort of ability score roll, and then that solves it. And they move on. They just get less XP for it because they didn't solve it for themselves, but they're still going to get XP for beating the challenge. They're part of their ego is going to be hurt a little bit. I don't tend to do stuff like that. I'm saying if I do things like that, but let's move on because the character would have that knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not big on puzzle either. Like I wanted to say, like Elsie, don't pull a Chris Perkin. Yeah, you brought the stuff, and now at the dungeon. That
yeah, that's no.
That we agree about. Let the player play as well. But what I'm saying also is like if you're if you're in town and the players kind of an idea what they want to do next, but now they're just like debating and stuff like that. Or maybe they're not too interested in what you put forward for them, like the plot hook, and they're just like, do we want to do that? And nothing seemed to light them up. Maybe that's the time like an NPC come in the room where they are at. Like and say like, there's a fucking fire in the end, like, well, whatever, something happened. Like make them move in that sense.
Oh, that's a great. There's an Earthdawn module that does that, and I had one group be like, "Oh, the town's on fire. Oh, yeah, I'm out." I mean, you're out. Like, because you're supposed to be heroes. Like, do we have to do this? Like, no, you don't have to do it.
You don't have to do it.
like
maybe just like you need to get out because like
okay, I mean, if obviously if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. We'll move on. But it's just one of those things where it's like you went to this town. You met some of the important players. The town basically becomes lit on fire, and you're just like, "Oh, that sucks. We're leaving." Okay, well,
yeah, and what else did I? Oh yeah, time doing stuff between session. How do you feel about that? Is it something you allow? Is it something that you favor? Say like, you know what, you want to do that? Just like send me a message between the session and tell me. No?
I'm old school. We're not going to have Discord conversations about what's happening. Time is stopped when the game is done, or when that session's over. Because I usually end my sessions on. I hate using the term because it's not exactly accurate, but I like ending it on some sort of cliffhanger. More, I like to call it a decision point. They've just made a decision. We are going to enter the town. We are going to enter the dungeon. We are going to fly. Do the whatever, we're going to do these things. Stop. Great, because that's what I'm going to prepare for next week. Makes my life a lot easier because I know generally what direction they should be going in. So they're like, can I do? No, this time is stopped. Now, if there is like, hey, all right, you guys got 2 weeks to figure out what you're going to do, yada yada, then I usually talk about that stuff after the session or like immediately after the session or the start of the next session. I don't, because what happens in my experience, even before Discord, is people have these little secret things like, "Ooh, I want to do this," and so such and such doesn't know. And I'm tired of that. I'm really, really tired of that. Oh, look, the thief is trying to fuck with the paladin again. Oh, look, the wizard wants to show that he's better than the fighter. Like, why are you guys e-peening? Stop it. Just like, to me, and I'm not saying that that's bad role play or anything like that. I'm just saying, me personally, I'm tired of that. I'd rather if it just don't do it.
Yeah, you see, I like if there end the session in a safe place, there's gonna be some downtime, stuff like that. I don't mind if they want to send me something between session, but otherwise we can do it like, okay, we're next session we're gonna pick up 2 weeks later. We can do in the beginning of the session. Okay, what did you do during those 2 weeks? And then everybody like say like, we all like meet up back where we agreed upon. Maybe we just went all our own way, and I did that, but like. Sometimes it's also like an opportunity, maybe we're gonna role play sometime like just through text or whatever, like if you went on a solo adventure almost like during this 2 week or you did something.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that person. I just haven't. Nope. Like it's just I've done it, not often, but I've not been a fan of that. Yeah, that's the only real way I can say it. Like what Arnman said, if they want to share ideas in between the games, yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying look, even when we played in person, I couldn't stop them from meeting up and talking. I wouldn't want to stop them from meeting up and talking. What I didn't want to do is move anything forward or allow somebody to like, hey, before we go there, I want to be able to go and do this and do this other thing and do this other thing and try to sneak this other thing in. No, that's something you're going to have to do at the table and have them wonder like, why aren't you here? Or what if somebody else wanted to meet up with you on Wednesday and because we skipped like 7 days ahead, now you're telling me over here on Wednesday, now I have to have a session with 2 of you guys because you're looking for him on Wednesday and this guy isn't here on Wednesday. No, that stuff is taken care of at the table. The game is stopped, but yeah, the players can absolutely talk and strategize and do whatever else. I would encourage that as well. And of course, I'm just, can we do this? You can try. You can do anything. You can try anything.
Okay, that lead me to like because you mentioned like, oh, okay, now we talk about a bit solo in saying, okay, we do it like solo kind of adventure, like, oh, I'm going on my own way doing this own stuff. That lead me to another thing I want to talk about, like, and that's the thing, like splitting the party. How do you manage like when the party split, keeping time going, keeping them kind of at the same time, but also keeping each party engaged.
I can't tell you that I'm good at that. I can tell you that I've done different things and that sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't, and there's been no consistency for that. So I've tried I'll do a round or two with you here and then a round or two with you there, especially if they're kind of working in concert.
Mm-hmm.
I've done the whole, hey guys, go grab something to eat, go grab a smoke, whatever. I'm going to handle these guys for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back to you. I've tried doing it multiple different ways. I've never had like one session on, one session off. Like, okay, you guys aren't going to be here for next session. I've never done that, but I have done the short term thing. Kind of leapfrog each other. I've done the just catch up to each other. I've done the finish yours and then we'll do yours. And sometimes it works and they're like, that was great. And other times I could do the exact same thing, be like, dude, that was not the right way. And like, it's one of those that I try to stay away from, but I'm not going to stop the party from splitting up if they've got a legit reason to do it. Hell, I've actually put reasons out there for them to split out. You need to be over here and you need to be over here at the same time for something to happen properly,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you should generally, like, the good advice is to avoid like doing like, don't do like a half hour or 45 minutes block with one guy, and then when the rest of the table, like, try to split it up a bit more. Unless
if somebody's doing that, if it's one guy, now when I was talking splitting up, I was thinking, half the team over here, half the team over here, because I tend to run apparently larger games. I like 6 players at my table. That's my sweet spot. I can do 7, 8 starts to really end it for me, but I like 6 players plus myself at the table. That's perfect. So if I have 3 over here, or 4 over here, and 2 over here, whatever, that's fine. But if one person's trying to be alpha male and just trying to usurp all the time, I will. And I failed at this in the past, but in my modern self, I will cut that off unless everybody's having fun. If they're sitting there like, dude, this is great. I just love watching this guy doing what he's doing. Like, okay, then I'll keep it going. But other than that, it's like, no, get to your point. You are not going to sit here. And this is a problem with gamers, myself included. Every gamer thinks he's more intelligent than every politician, than every,
that's easy.
A religious leader, every person out there with a point of view. Every gamer nerd thinks that he's smarter than that person. And it's like, dude, do you understand that sometimes emotion takes over? People do things for dumb reasons. I don't care how good your talking points are. A dwarf is stubborn. It isn't going to change because you're just wrong. Mm-hmm. And stop trying to convince him for 45 freaking minutes. It's not going to work. You made your pitch. You failed your role. You're moving on. That's just what it's going to be.
Well, that's also like a point where we can that we can take, like, I know, like, this all like movie thing is tried, but there's sometimes like there's a good point in writing that you can say about that. Like, you're gonna see like, oh, I'm gonna go see this guy, I'm gonna try to convince him. You're not gonna have like a scene like that's gonna last like fucking 45 minutes.
I've had people in my groups, especially those that like to rationalize everything. Like, no, this because of this, because of all these things, I know I'm smarter because I'm me, and of course I'm right. Kind of stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at a movie, you won't see those kind of scenes. It's gonna be like condensed. The extra dialogue is gonna be cut off. You're gonna come in the middle of the thing, and that's when the role come in as well.
But I do more book style than movie style. Again, I don't agree with Shauner on the movie style stuff.
I'm just saying like, usually, like, because when you're at the table, like, I think the movie stuff, it's not like a role playing game is like a movie, but in a sense you visualize what's happening in the game. You know what I mean? I hope you do that. And so you kind of make your movie in your head, and that you can cut those things, like, and that's where the roles comes in. You know what I mean? Sure. Oh, you want to go convince this dwarf? You can make your Persian role and stuff like that, and then we can visualize that. Oh, okay, there was a big speech and whatever. You know what I mean? But
I mean, I'll have people like, oh, you're trying to convince a group of people, to join the war campaign. I'll let somebody, write down or give or whatever, a 5-minute speech on that. If that's what the character or the player wants to do, give me a persuasive paper on this. But if the player's like, I'm not interested in that, I mean, I would never suggest that directly, but, just like, I just want to convince them. Well, I would like a little better role playing than that. So, again, I'm the type of person who will flat out say, if you're not charismatic in any way, shape, or form, don't play a bard. I'll just flat up say that. Now, you don't have to be great. but you have to be willing to try. If you're dumb as a box of rocks, you probably don't want to play the 18 intelligence wizard because you aren't going to be solving the things that you need to solve. At the same time, I'm not going to stop you from doing it as long as you're making the attempt. And so if you give me a 30-second, we'll call it the elevator pitch attempt as to how you're persuading the people to join the war effort, that's all you need. Make your roll. It failed. No, but I told them about these things. Doesn't matter. They're too scared. They didn't want to do it. Shell shock. Nobody wants to send their kids out to war, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, and it's also like I think that if you want to do like a 5-minute speech, I think that's a bit long. But like if
I've had people do longer. It's up to the table.
But I think also a lot of time is like the number of interaction you have. Make a point. He's gonna make a counterpoint. Reply to that counterpoint, and then move on. That's it.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah. And that's why I think the free league rules are awesome for social conflict, because I think it really it captures.
Yeah,
it captures.
In the free league, that would be that you make your role, you can push your role, and then that's it.
And but role playing actually comes into that. If you role play well, you actually get a bonus to your role.
And what I was talking about, like splitting the party we're talking about, because I think a mistake oftentimes that the GM do, especially when the party are splitting right now, right? When they, at the moment, like say, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going to this other room, I'm going to do that. The GM oftentimes will want to narrate right away what's happening, but it doesn't give and especially when you play online and you try not to interrupt each other, but it doesn't give the other player an opportunity to say, like, you know what, I'll go with you, or while you do that, I'll do that. You know what I mean? And I think that's important. If the party is about to go to split, to do something, go around the table to see what everybody is doing. While you say, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going to see the Smith. Then okay, don't start like describing what's happening at the Smith.
Right. No. Yeah, absolutely.
Here. Pick up your thing and try to keep your block of description. Like, go visit, like, oftentimes also, because somebody go do something that's gonna take 45 minutes while somebody else do something that's gonna take 5. If you do,
generally speaking, if you say you want to go to the Smith and somebody else says he wants to go role play at the tavern to try to pick up the chick or something like that, most of that, I don't want to say it's going to be hand wave, but most of that, unless it's something necessary, let's say that the blacksmith is a contact for some reason, well, I'll role play that. If the blacksmith is just nothing but, hey, he wants to go get horseshoes for his horse or get his sword sharpened or something, it's going to be like, okay, you get there, the blacksmith roll is busy right now, so he can get to it in 3 days because he's been commissioned by the military to do something else. And sorry, but the King's Guard takes priority over some mercenary or over you guys. Either deal with it or not. Something like that, and then we'll move on. Maybe he'll want to be like, but I've got negotiation, and I want to try my negotiation skill. Okay, how are you going to negotiate this one? And he'll give me his little rundown of how he's negotiating it. Make your roll. You either make it or don't. You know what? You negotiated well. He thinks he can sneak that one in. Or you failed. No, it's going to be 3 days. Deal with it. Like,
but I mean, there's also like you want to also leave the opportunity, like, if I know you went to the Smith, I went to go pick some flour. You know what I mean? We need to have like an opportunity, like, to catch up. Like, if your thing is gonna take a long time, mine is not. You know what I mean? Like, at some point I can say, oh, okay, I'm done what I'm doing now. I'm going to the Smith. But if we role play the whole scene, where like now I kind of like time to kill, you know what I mean? I cannot just like fucking catch up with you in the middle.
That would be obnoxious if you role played every little aspect of all of that. Like, even in my worst days, I don't think I did anything like that.
Yeah, but because like I think what we want, and with paying attention to the time, how much time things take, is also you want to avoid the retcon. You want to avoid avoiding pointless role play. You want to avoid teleporting your player as well. You don't want you want to have like the feeling.
Oh, I love it. I love it when that flower picking character. Chances are there's good. Well, actually, not chances are. There's for sure going to be a wandering encounter roll for that.
Yeah.
Now, whether it actually happens or not is a different story. But there's going to be a random encounter roll if you decide you're going to go. I'm just going to go out there and pick some flowers in the middle of nowhere. I mean.
Yeah, and
I agree with that, El.
What else? Time is fungible, especially in town. Yeah, I think yeah, like I'm not like like I know like Shauna like he said about oh it's always real time. It's always like I'm not I'm not a big fan of that because sometimes like something just like I say like you want to see oh you go to the smith get your sword sharpened, okay, we just pick up you off you're getting off the smith, you know what I mean?
It depends on
Not
the
nothing
players. I mean,
happens.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. Now, I'm a player at the table too, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do. But I'm just telling you that my players that I had in most of my games, they wanted some of that interaction.
Hmm.
It's like, I actually had to pull it back to some degree. And, I might think some of it's silly now, but if they were there and they wanted that interaction and helped them feel part of the world, that to me, that's the big thing, that verisimilitude or feeling part of the world. We're talking with time that the world keeps moving on around them and based on the decisions that they make and some of the things that they do, but, they
Yeah.
want to feel part of it as well. And if that's what helps them feel part of it, I'm going to do that. The problems arise when, like you said, you're spending 45 minutes on each one of these things and all of a sudden the
Yep.
session's over and all you did was pick some flowers, buy some rope, go to the blacksmith, go drink at the tavern, pick up chicks, and that's it, and nothing else happened. I get
Yeah.
that. The other part of it, where the problem comes in is, as I said before, when the player is like, no, I'm right because I have all pseudoscience behind me and I know everything I said is perfect because I'm me. And I can't tell you how many times I ran into that. And it's like, shut up. like
And
then you got a disgruntled, and seriously, you'll have a disgruntled player at the table, but sometimes you just got to suffer with a disgruntled player at the table. Sorry, dude. I don't care how many times you tried to tell this person that the world is flat because you actually fell off the edge of it one time. This guy doesn't believe it's flat, and there's nothing you can say because his gods tell him it's not flat.
yeah, and there's a like yeah there's a matter of tone in that as well, like, and also like depending on what the player are engaged in otherwise, if you're going to the blacksmith because you need something to go do this other job, it's just like a step to something else. It's a different feeling than if you just like you just finished coming to the dungeon, you want to go to the blacksmith for whatever reason, get your armor fixed and stuff like that. Then that's a different it's gonna have a different importance in how much time you want to spend in that interaction. Like you can spend a little more time if you're not on a time crunch, if you're not working on something. If the players are working toward a plan, do something that's gonna come next. They probably want to get that next thing. They probably like
Mm-hmm.
that going to the blacksmith. So you can skip over this thing a little faster as well, I
Well,
think.
what's kind of cool about some of my, let me use my Earthdawn game as an example, is sometimes we would pay attention to the, first of all, I keep my players poor. And
Yeah.
I exaggerate the poor side of it. No, it's not poor, but they have to make choices. They don't have enough money to go around to buy everything they want for the level that they are. That's just the way I do it because I want them to always strive for just a little bit more, a little bit more. It's like, man, I'm gonna get this one day. Well, in the Earth Dawn game, Al, the guy who played Garthon, he was actually rich. He was rich as could be. They're right there close. Wow. Uh, but he kept converting his money from coins that people would buy into what's called elemental coins. So
Mhm.
not everybody can break an elemental coin. Well, not all the players had enough money for training, but he kept banking his money. He literally slept outside. I would give him penalties for sleeping outside the next day, but that's how he wanted to deal with this character. Uh, well, he banked all this money, and then all of a sudden people started coming to him like, "You have money, Garthon? Like, yeah, can I borrow some?" And he'd be like, "You have to give me a blood promise," which in Earthdawn is like a blood swear. It's magically involved. It's if you don't pay the people back, you'll be marked like for the rest of your life. Nuts. And yeah, but it had these great role playing moments in there of those blood promises. Of now, I'm just short. I'm just short. All I need is this training, and you're my trainer. Help me. Like, okay, I will train you, but you now have to do something for me. I think it adds to those role playing elements, and not everything has to be just go from one adventure to the next adventure, the next adventure, to the next adventure. You can have these sessions where you're just talking. Guess what they all do? They all take time.
Yep. Yeah, and it's always like about like getting the feel of the vibe at the table as well. Like sometimes it's all right. Sometimes you have to you get to get a message, it's time to move on. Like to
Yep.
go with the flower picking example, which was
Yeah.
silly. I don't know why I came with that. But like maybe it's not needed to say like, oh, okay, now I got pick. I see a nice red flower, and I pick this one, and that's gonna go well with this white flower. Like, and like
Well, I would do something like that for some like a magic potion or a magic spell.
If it's significant, but if you like, if I just want to go pick white flower
Okay,
because I
dude, you're
want to
picking
give them to
flowers.
the
How
prince.
long are you going to pick
Yeah.
flowers for? 2 hours? Great. You're doing it for 2 hours. In 2 hours, you come back. Moving on to the next person.
Yeah,
I won't
exactly.
be
Like,
that
I'll just
rude
like
about it, but yeah.
I just like, okay, I live back. I live to go pick flower in the field. Okay, then you roleplay with other people. You come back to me. Okay, I'm there with my bouquet of flower. I go back to the tavern to meet the guy. There you go. That's all I did. Like, we understand, like, off camera to
Okay.
use, like,
If you
I
wanted
don't
to
tend to
say that
like the cinematic language too much, but like, off camera, this happened, and now we can move. Like, if
So,
nothing,
so I
if nothing
mentioned
too
before
bad.
the character that's going into the tavern to try to pick up the chick. Let's say he went out there and he's like, I'm gonna try to pick the best quality flowers that I can find. All right, let's roll a die because it's fun to roll
Yeah.
dice. You roll a die. You know what? You find some pretty good quality flowers. Now let's see how long it takes. I'm gonna roll a d4, and that's how many hours it takes. Unless the person says I'm gonna spend an hour or two. Oh shit, I got through. It took you 3 hours to do all that, but you know what? It might be worth it when you hand them to her. And you when you get there, we'll either do a reaction roll, or depending on how the person actually handles the role playing, we might role play that for a minute or two. I feel really weirded out when somebody's hitting on me at the table, but I might I might let a little bit of that start, but we're not going to spend the entire session on that. We're not going to spend an hour on it. At some point, it's going to be like, look, you wooed her, okay? You got her wooed, and let's move on.
Charlotte talk about like Gothic Morrowind Ultima, a lot of great CRPG that you seek out trainer to improve your character stat, and that's the trainer thing was a thing in the old school D&D as well. And how do you feel about that now? Because I think like they kind of like I don't know how I feel about them, because I think the thing that you needed is some downtime to get training back in the days worked well when it was expected that you play like multiple character. And you're just like putting this characters in training, so like in a week or two after training is going to be leveled up, but in the meantime I can play this other character. But now when you don't have that anymore, like it's almost like forcing downtime, or well, you don't get your level until like how do you fall on that topic?
Well, one, it depends on the game, and two, let's just use D&D because it's what everybody knows. And first, Armin, I'll do it to a small degree. I'm not going to spend time on it, but again, I sit at a table with role players who actually tend to like that kind of stuff. Plus, I also think they like to make me feel uncomfortable, so I give it to them for a little bit. But yeah, we're not going to spend a half hour on that. But I'm of a couple of minds, and I've done things differently over the years, and I'm trying to think what I did most recently, if I can remember. Thaco, so your ability to hit, when you level up, that will change immediately. What else changes? Pretty well for a fighter. That's pretty much it. So if you get that, hit points will change immediately. Also, what won't change immediately is you don't get your new spell right away. But it says as soon as I level up, I automatically get a new spell. Well, it might already be in your book, but you still have to memorize it. And by the way, you have to sleep. So until you sleep tonight, you are not getting your new spell. I'm trying to think what else I've done. I know I don't give I think I give saving throws, Thaco, and hit points at one time, but that's about it. Oh, you won't get any new non-weapon proficiencies until you train. Yeah, you won't get any new weapon proficiencies either. You have to train for that as well. But things that you already have, especially if you've been using it, those things can improve. Things you don't already have, you're on standby until you can go train.
But you still use the trainer otherwise. You don't.
Yeah.
It's just not like, oh, like a good night of rest, and you wake up with new knowledge in your mind.
No. Now, if it's a skill-based game where all you have to do is let's say the Call of Cthulhu. I don't know if Pendragon does the same thing, but you roll those percentile dice. If you get above the score, then you raise it by a D4 or something. I'll just let that happen because that's how the game runs. Earthdawn has a training system as well, so you might have to go find a ghost master. Well, guess what? Until you can summon a ghost, good luck with that.
You see, in Pendragon, all leveling up is done during the winter phase. So
then that's how I would do it.
Yeah, during this long downtime. But that integrates very well with that game. One other thing I want to talk about you, because we started the stream talking about calendar and our timeline. Timeline is the term you use, right?
Yes.
But just because I use calendar because usually that's how I mark. I use this little calendar and I mark when event happened and when they're gonna happen. with
Well,
I, mar- I
timeline. So
mark them in pencil.
let me explain on that because I'll use a calendar as well. Actually, I usually have the players use the calendar, and
Mm.
my timelines. They're very rarely do I say on the 7th of September this will happen, unless I have like some sort of conjunction event, like ooh, the Ides of March, kind of
Yeah.
thing. I'm just saying
Which can be cool also.
it absolutely can be, yes. What I normally do is I say, hey, the army is marching. Let's again use your example. The army is marching. Now let's make it longer than 3 months. It's just marching. You don't know how long it's going to take for it to get here because it's early. You're just getting the rumors. It could be a few weeks. It could be a few months. You don't know what's going to stop them. If you decide, you know what, that sounds important. That sounds like something we want to take care of. We want to protect these people. Now you have to start traveling out that direction. You have to find out what the lords of the land want. You have to, maybe you'll have some side quests. In the meantime, that stuff keeps happening. As it gets closer and closer to the PCs, then dates might become a little more solidified. But ultimately, what it is I have this infinity and zero concept. When it comes to zero, the players win. The players win at zero. At least that timeline. That timeline has stopped. It's over. When it goes to infinity, that means the enemy has won. Because they accomplished its goal. It's infinite. They've won everything. And anything in there means the timeline is still in play. So that timeline could be stretched out. You may have stopped that army for however you did it, convinced some dragons to come in and breathe some fire and knock them down. You may have postponed that army for 2 years, but you didn't wipe it out, or you didn't put it into such disarray that you broke it up, but you stretched it out to the point where you've got plenty of time. You can go work on some other stuff and not worry about this, or you can go and wipe it out, whatever you want. But you see what I'm saying? Like it's a zero means you put an end to it. It's over. You've won. Infinite means you've lost. But the cool thing about infinite means that just means the world's changed. Your area has been conquered by that army. Now, how do you deal with that? Do you run off? Do you subvert from within? Do you join that team? I don't know. But the game isn't over just because because you're guaranteed that certain timelines are not going to succeed. You cannot stop everything.
Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't. Like stuff needs to happen as well. Like the world shouldn't be like in a static state. But what I wanted to ask really was about like a fantasy calendar. Do you do like your own like in this world like a week is gonna be 10 day and a month is gonna be sometime 52 day and sometimes 16, but other 3 years, every 3 years there's a month of 28. Do you do like those crazy
I
fucking
have
calendar,
done that.
like...
I do one of a couple of things now. Actually, you mentioned one of them. Sometimes I'll do a 10-day week. Sometimes I'll do a 5-day week. Usually I just keep with the 7-day week. The one thing that I do though is all months are 30 days or 28 days. They're either straight 4 weeks or they're straight 30 days, like whether it's a 5, and that's usually when I have the 10-day or the 5-day calendar. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I don't get weird. Like a year's like 716 days, and there are 19 months in the year, and 1 month is like 7 days, and the rest are 15. No, it's going to be something you can recognize because I'm not here to try to confuse you. I want you to understand what's going on, but I may make it a little different, just for the purposes of you remembering that you're somewhere else, not Earth. And I'm kind of 6 of one, half and does the other. I don't feel it's a necessity. I could easily do 7 days, 365 days, or I could do, something different. What I will do though is I'll rename the months. But okay. The long winter or the long sleep, depending on where somebody is, and the bright time. Okay, that's dumb, but I like something like that. Where I'll make it a little bit more druidic, so to speak, but. Do
you rename the day of the week if you stick like a 7-day week? Do you? No?
Well, if it's a 7-day week, I might, again, that gets into nuance that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about. I might, based on the gods of the realm, but I try not to. I've been more known to go. I hate to be all Japanesey about this, but more 1st day, 2nd day, 3rd day kind of thing.
Yeah, Portuguese is the same thing.
Well, okay. Lundi, mardi, mercredi. No, I'm not doing all. No, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what I've done in the past. It's just not something that's been a focus. Normally, we just talk in days, and if the players wrote down, "Hey, it's been 62 days. What month are we in?" I don't know. Like February. I mean, the long dark. There you go. You're in the long dark month.
Because I think that's sometimes like I say, like, well, obviously I often play like more like a mundane game, so like using the real world calendar is not an issue. But even we do like more fantasy stuff in a different world, like sometimes I say, yeah, you just like we're gonna use the day of the week that we know, like maybe in world they're not called the same, but also in world people don't speak English or French or whatever, like like we just like role playing in that language, like it's translated. Maybe they call like the fucking Monday, they call it like something else, like but like we refer to it as Monday because we speak English, whatever.
What I've learned is that if you try to inject too many weird words or weird
Yeah,
concepts, they start to lose it.
yeah, it's the track, and that's what I wanted to go as well. Yeah, because like people sometimes say like, oh, I'm gonna make my own calendar, and it's gonna be weird, gonna do intricacity and stuff like that, and yeah, that could contribute to immersion somewhat because it gives you the impression that you're in a different world, that they have their own
Mhm.
culture, their own history, stuff like that. But oftentimes it becomes too complex, and it's
Yeah.
learning a calendar, learning a way, like it's become art, even art that is like fairly like mainstream nowadays. They still like got this like little quirk about our calendars, but
I would rather just have weird holidays.
yeah, yeah. But that's the thing I said is I always think about what does it add
Mhm.
to the drama, to the narrative, because yeah, like I say, it's gonna add, and also not only what it adds, but also what it takes away. If your player are always confused about when we are, you know what I mean? Like how many days, like, oh wait, is it like like if it causes more confusion, like if it causes a lot of confusion, sometimes it's not worth it. So I think like, I would say this is something to be worry about. It may sound cool on paper, but in practice, oftentimes,
I just realized what I'm going to do in all my fantasy games now. I'm just going
what
to incorporate Star Trek star dates. Everything's going to be a star date. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's going to be a moon date because,
I yeah,
a
is that
fey
like the
date.
part where we talk about Star Trek now?
I had to do it in case Bear's still watching. But we're going to fey date. FAE, fey date. On
Yeah.
fey date 2016.4.
And you mentioned that you rename the month, and I think like if you want to do that, maybe that's fair because like people don't like it's not something that switch as fast as the day of the week. And but if you want to do it, like try to find like name that are representative of what's happening.
Yeah, usually the gods of the realm, or like I said,
Or
I
the
like to do it
season.
based on the season. Yeah, I like to do
Yeah.
it based on the season. So that if it's called Bright Sun, you're
Mhm.
probably talking somewhere around June, July-ish, in the real world. If you're talking about the long cold, or I don't know what terms I was using before,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, if that was meaningful to me, I would take time to actually think about what works, or let me phrase it, not what works, what sounds good.
Mhm.
And I would so I'm just trying to think. Like, I don't know that dives into a realm that, like you said, causes a distraction. I would rather do things like just say, "Oh, it's a fortnight away," just to remind people, because a lot of people don't use that term anymore. Or,
Mhm.
"Hey, you need to travel 10 leagues." Well, how the hell far is that? Well, times three. I would rather do something like that than come up with new words. But to say for the 15th time here, if I'm going to do months, it's going to be something you can understand, but maybe not exactly translate, to make you think about it for just a second. Ultimately, to keep you there, but not like, wait a minute, hold on, let me write all these down again because I can never remember this stuff. There's a
But
game out there called Shard that I want to love, but I can't love the game because there's so many goofy words in it. I can't read the dumb book.
because that's the thing. Like, there's always like this question of like player knowledge versus character knowledge, and like the month of the fucking year, that would be absolutely something that your character would know. So if you make them weird, if you make them like mysterious and stuff like that, it's gonna be hard for the player to know. Like I said, like when you're a child, that's not an easy thing to learn. Like people get confused all the time. Like you try to ask a fucking like a 5-year-old to name the month of the year, like you might forget one in the middle, like and verse the other or two. I mean, it's something that you
How
just
about a
have to
world
learn.
that has 4 months and just has basically 120 days in each month? It's literally the season. They don't break
Yeah.
down the seasons anymore. Because you have to consider things. Let's say you're doing Dragonlance, just as an argument. Dragonlance has 3 moons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, month means moon, right? So
Yeah.
which moon are we talking about here? No, I'm not going to get into that. I know what the answer is, but the point is like, what if your world decides to do is it New Atari, the Black Moon? It's like we have a month every 8 days. It's great. Like you're going to want to do something that makes sense for the setting without overcomplicating it for the players. And
Yeah.
pardon me, I think I've probably beat that one down too much. But I'm trying to think of a time though when I would do something goofily weird, and I can't think of one.
But like, and because we talk a lot about keeping the impression that the time keep going, thinking about season is something that's important as well. Like you want like the season like should change throughout the world. Oftentimes like people like it's role play, like it's always like kind of like summer or spring.
Oh god, Hyperborea is amazing for that.
Oh yeah.
Hyperborea's got the Game Master Guide. The Hyperborea's got like 10 pages on what weather to expect on whatever day of the year it is.
But because and sometimes it's just gonna be winter or cold when it's dramatic to be so, like for some reason. But like otherwise, like it's too often like in waves. You want to keep like the very similitude. I think having season go by, it can be very interesting. And
I mean, I like doing seasons. I'll be honest, I probably don't focus on them as much as I should. At least not that I remember, but I do like doing seasons. I'm trying to think. I did it more for purposes of food and and their scavenging than I did for like the clothes that they had to wear.
Yeah, Guardian of the Rune say L5 Air, Legend of the Five Ring as a thing during winter snow, wars and character adventuring are put on hold, politics and resource management are during the winter. It's the same thing in Pendragon. Like oftentimes in most historical game, like in more historical game, that's oftentimes what's gonna happen because summer was a season for war and adventuring and stuff like that.
Well, look at right now. I mean, the same thing happens right now in the world. I mean, wars get put on hold because all right, snow's about fun unless you're the Nazis. Wars get put on hold in the middle of the winter, and then they resume again when summer is. Like Afghanistan, Iraq were like that. Actually, the Middle East is big on that. The Mongols were like that.
Yeah, and Ironcaster say I'm a floating head streaming from.
He's Holly.
Yeah, I got ends too. Yeah, and what about like those holidays? I think those can be then those can add a lot to the feeling of a world. You can learn like, holidays,
yeah,
and festival and stuff like that. Is there like one that you always like say like, oh, a world should have that, or like, oh, this one I always include?
No, I don't have one at least that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't have one that I always include. One of the things I like to do is I like the players to come, especially if somebody's a cleric, because holidays are holy days, and I like the cleric to come up with a couple. I don't want you coming up with like 75 every month, but have a couple of important rites for your priesthood or your beliefs.
And asking the player to come up with them. That's a great fucking advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would I want to do that?
Well, it's also going to make it easier for him to remember them. I mean, and he's going to be more invested in them. It's just like not just it's you engaging him in that in coming up with his own religion in a way. I think that's good. That's a good general advice. Yeah, I usually like I usually try to have like one important one per season.
Yeah.
Because it helps to keep the feeling of time, like like, oh, there's like the harvest festival. Well, kind of like a fall. Or there's like the festival of spring or whatever. It's like the it helps, and often also it makes sense, but it can be like an easy reminder of like oh, this thing coming up. Well, you kind of know where you are in the year. It's a once in a while give a reminder, like sometimes
and it just shows the passage of time. Yep.
Yeah, and it forecasts also that thing will change. What I mean? Like, oh, it's the harvest festival. Expect winter soon.
Yeah, one of the problems for playing fantasy games like Dungeons and Dragons or Earthdawn doesn't really have this, but especially I used to run some stuff. As much as I say I don't like it, I did run a lot of stuff in Forgotten Realms because it's what people knew. And you've got 4,006 different gods there, and trying to figure out, okay, when is it meaningful to have a holiday? Because let's be honest, wouldn't there be like a holiday every day? Like depending on what
one.
Yeah. So I didn't focus a lot on that. But when you have a system like the homebrew that I made, where it had 6 gods. 4 neutral gods, 1 god of good, 1 god of evil. And holidays there were, well, the 4 neutral gods did the solstice and the equinoxes, and it is based on elements: air, earth, water, fire. The good god had the summer, and the evil god had the winter.
Full Metal Dragon said the people of Hyperborea have season that lasts years. Each is about 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do like the Game of Thrones kind of thing where seasons are kind of random, that can also be. But that would be like for a specific campaign. Like that's going to be like an element in that campaign, or I think that could be interesting as well. It can add something that will not become like trying to find clue about when is winter coming. To
anything can work if you have a good enough game master and willing enough participant players.
Yep.
Anything can work. You could have 100 months of 3 days.
Anything can work, but also I would say like think about what it brings to the table and what it costs to get it.
Exactly.
And it's always, because there's always a trade-off, and it's something like that's oftentimes like what I say. Like, I say like keep it more mundane, because I say oftentimes the thing you add, if you just try to be fancy, just to I want it to be different, I want it to be, well, you're gonna get that, but you're also gonna get a confusion. You're gonna get the question. You're gonna get
or you're gonna get the players just calling it the mundane word no matter what you want anyway.
Yeah, that can happen as well. Yeah. And then you're just going to get the frustration that you put all this work for nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add about time that you think we didn't touch? Time in RPGs?
No, not really. I think the major things that I wanted to talk about is, generically how I do my timelines, and then the timer die. I'm a huge fan of the timer die. I think more people should use the timer die, where it's meaningful to use, because it adds randomness even for you as the game master. It just, you don't know how, that reinforcements are coming, roll. That a weather pattern's coming in, roll a D6 hours. That's how long it's going to be. Whatever it happens to be, you can use that timer die out there. Hey, that the characters are going to come across somebody who can help them. Well, how long is it going to take, for that? So, I mean, it doesn't just have to be against the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the timer die is something that I didn't use much, but I did use. But that's something I should maybe integrate more. God in the Runes say like Warhammer Fantasy, every adventure take place during a holiday festival. If you're going to be playing a game, there should be something happening, and if there's a nefarious plot between them, when everyone is distracted, those festivals are not just for downtime, like between adventures, something to do between adventure. If using them during something's happening, like as a background, like it's gonna make your world feel much more alive, and feel that the world is living not just for the character, like the world is living for its own sake. That's something I often said. So I think that that's a good thing that they do there. If they always like set their
the answer is 6 rounds.
What do you say? The biggest problem with this time is magic. 10-round spell lasts how long after combat? Only 4 rounds. Yeah, well, depends. Of now, like
obviously, it depends on the game. Depends on if you have some sort of concentration system or whatever. But a spell that just generically you throw it out there and it lasts 10 rounds, and you can cast another spell after that, then it would still be out there.
The spell lasts 10 rounds. The fight lasts 4, so you have like 6 rounds. If you have like 6 seconds, you have like 36 seconds of a So that's it's almost nothing.
Yeah, or if it's a minute round like in D&D, you're waiting 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's something. Oh man, okay, that's something we didn't talk about. I fucking hate. That's something like it's not really like it's just like language in D&D. I fucking hate this round in D&D, in the old school D&D. Like, a turn is 10 minutes and a round is 1 minute or whatever. I think at some point they flipped as well, and then you have like segment. I said that's fucking stupid.
Worked for me.
No, but I mean it's stupid because it's unnecessary. And
segments were important because of, at least in 2nd edition, and I am one of those people who used both speed factor and casting times because I felt they were important and did add to the game. Made you think about what weapons you're going to use and think about what spells you want to cast. Made a dagger pretty deadly compared to somebody with a 2-handed sword if you could, attack first all the time. the segment's great. The 1 minute round, I got to tell you that even back when I played heavily, we didn't focus on that being 1 minute. We just didn't. Like nobody said it's 10 seconds or it's 1 minute or whatever. We just did our rounds, and how many rounds did that combat take? If it was 10 rounds, then it became a turn. Like it's just I'm sure there are reasons to focus on that. I just don't remember many, if any, of them. We just worried about how many rounds and then moving on.
Yeah, the reason I don't like it is because like round and turn are a thing that we use in natural language and are a thing that we use in games in general. If you play Monopoly, when everybody had one turn, that's a round. You know what I mean? Like, and the turn is when it's your turn to play. You make your roll, you move your character, you make your decision. Then when everybody
Starting to
does
sound like
that,
Heathen Dog
you
now. He gets really pedantic about those words. That's just how the game set up. Like if the game defines the
yeah,
word, then that's what I do. Like,
yeah, they define the word, but that's the thing. They define the word in a way that is confusing, because when you try to teach people and you say like, oh, okay, that's a turn, and then oh no, a turn now means everybody like no, it's not how people understand those terms in
maybe it's a
natural
language
language.
barrier thing. I literally never ran into that in my years of playing. Now, I'm not saying it's the right way to go or the best way to go. I'm just saying I've never run into
But
that.
yeah, I don't think it's a big deal, because I just usually I just like fucking ignore it. You say like I just talk like okay, it's your turn, go ahead. People
Wait, does that
understand
mean
that.
it takes me 10 minutes? No, it's just shut up. It's
No.
your turn. Shut up. Like people know the context. Do you like scenes? Yes, I do.
It's a similar idea with like people like to talk about like, oh, level and spell level, using level for both. Oh no, that's
So my game, which is how do you want to call it, an homage, but with
Yep.
many changes. Not completely compatible. Palladium uses level for everything, and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Some things should not have the same term because it gets confusing. And let's use D&D. D&D, yeah, spell level versus character level. Now we all understood it when we played. It wasn't that big of a deal. I don't care, but as the hobbies evolved, have games have evolved, as writing theoretically should have gotten better, we can look and we can fix those things. And now games, some games use level and rank and power, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's but anyway, just like I said, I don't care that much about it. That's like I didn't bring it up before somebody was.
I guess what I'd say to that is, I'm not going to ask old school Dungeons and Dragons to change, because it's a dumb complaint. Outside of that, modern, if you're making your own stuff, that's definitely an improvement you can make, because at this point it's not a dumb complaint, because you're trying to make it concise. Like, don't change what's already there, but if you're going forward, you found an easier way of doing it, which makes it better.
Yeah. Do you like seeing a spell last as long as it needs to last? That's something that you say you do like it. I like it as well. I think that can be like, you cast the spell, it's gonna last for the scene.
A perfect example is charm spells. You can charm somebody and it lasts for as long as you need. That might be 3 questions. That might be 1 service. That might be whatever, but it lasts for that scene. And that scene could last for a minute. It could last for an hour. Just whatever's important for it at that time. I love it conceptually. Yes.
Yeah. And also, like, I got to say, in Winter Down, something I do in Winter Down, like the tempo change can be significant. So if you go like, if you're in like what I mentioned earlier, if you're in interaction tempo, when you just like free form and stuff like that, and then you roll initiative, now you become in action tempo. That's a tempo change. It can have some consequence in the game. And when you get out of initiative, there can be some consequence as well. So like tempo change can be significant. That's just something I do as well. So sometimes it's just like when you're gonna get off initiative, you're gonna regain some basically stamina.
Sure.
Our men say not just level, +1 plate as your AC go from 3 to 2. yeah. That's that's also another thing.
But again, that's one of those things that it is not as intuitive as it could be. Correct.
Yeah.
But I don't think should be changed from Dungeons and Dragons. I don't agree with ascending armor class in Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a better overall system. I think it's more intuitive and people grasp it. But part of D&D's charm is those weird quirks that exist with it. Without those, I'll be honest with you. Like I was listening to Joe and Randy talk about the saving throws from original D&D, and I couldn't disagree with them more. You the saving throws of third edition Dungeons and Dragons, the ascending armor class, and so many of those things just kind of like, okay, it's generic game now.
Well, if you try to make things make sense, it makes for a game that is easier to learn and easier to play in a lot of instance. But
Right.
if
But make a new game with it. Just call it a new
also,
game.
like, when things make sense, like that's when people like if a few people would design a game in the void, they would come to the same kind of conclusion because they make sense. So yeah, it does bring something a little more generic. So again, there's like this question of trade-off.
I just want to stress that change for what already exists isn't needed. And it isn't bad. We all learned it. We all figured it out. Going forward, making something new, yeah, do it the way that makes more sense. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, like you say, like I played OSC for the first time at a big geek con, I guess.
Yeah.
And the Ascending AC was not a big deal to me. I've played the Ascending AC, yeah, and this Ascending AC, like it makes sense if you just think like it's the size of the target. You know what I mean? Like the smaller the number, the smaller the hole in the armor is. Basically, that's what it is. Oh, hello, Brian. Yeah. So I was about to wrap up there, but then we're getting a bit off topic. And like you say, like timeline and timer dice, great addition to your game. If you want to keep like some pressure, keep the time going, having people have the feeling to that the world still exists, not just for them for the PCs, but exists for its own sake. That's always what I come back to. And so that's what I would say. Like make sure that your time goes by, the season advance, that the world is not on pause when the player are not around. Leave some time for your player to engage with a thing that they find engaging, that they're interested with. Learn when to skip some scene. Don't role play everything that is not meaningful. I think that'd be like the core advice we could get from tonight.
Yeah, and just understanding that for every table, and I hate using the cop out answer, as long as you're having fun, it's okay. Because to me, we all know that it's a cop out answer. But my table, as I've already mentioned, and apparently Chandra's going to make a video about, oh no, my table liked some things that other tables might not. People in chat were talking about, just bypass a lot of this. Okay, if that's what your table wants. At the same time, you're the game master, and if you don't like it, or if you really do like it, incorporate that, and your players will either keep playing or they won't. Yeah.
Oh, what else say? Like, yeah, but the world is on pause when the game is not in play.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. What I'm saying is like the world is not on pause when the game is in play. The part of the world that the characters are not interacting with is not on pause. That's the big difference that you have to make. You know what I mean? When the world is in play, even if the characters, like, the world is still going on outside of what the character are directly interacting with. Yeah. So thank you, Max, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Kind of short notice. Yeah, and thanks for people that watch live and the people that are going to watch on the replay. And I'll see you again next week. Tyler should be back by then. And I don't know what topic we're going to address. Maybe we're going to talk about puzzle. I think we talked the other day that we want to talk about that. And we mentioned it today. So maybe that's going to be a topic for next week. Oh, I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be a surprise next week. Take care, everybody. I'm going to end the stream now. See you.
Thank you.